When we adopt a trust-centric approach to managing endpoints, there's some interesting things that happen. And what we do is we start focusing on how endpoints should be managed, what should be installed on them, how different, what are the rules for change or introducing change to those systems. And what we start seeing is we get a lot of operational security and sort of TCO benefits to doing that over just having a threat-centric focus on what's being introduced. So in the past, what we did, what the industry did as a whole, is say, we really want to look at what's bad that's coming into a system and basically stop malware. And there's some benefits to doing that. But going broader in a trust-centric perspective is saying, I want to start defining some rules about how my endpoints are managed, what's on them, how things get introduced. And what we find when we move to this kind of model is that, yes, we do get some major security benefits. One of the side effects is that if you're putting some pretty strong rules about how things can be changed, then yeah, you block a lot of malware. And in fact, you block unknown malware, targeted type attacks. And that's great. That's part of why we're doing this. But some of the interesting and cool benefits beyond just security that we get are really sort of a lower operational TCO, or total cost of ownership. We are not allowing applications that we don't want into our environment, so we have a lot less conflicts between software and configurations. We are lowering the support burden on our IT help desks. We're making sure that our employees are productive. They're not installing games or unwanted applications that are utilizing a lot of bandwidth or CPU processes, or just their time not working. And we basically start getting this clean, controlled environment that really starts reducing costs beyond just stopping security incidents. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to move to a trust-centric model. Security is one of them, but definitely operational TCO is another very important point. So some of the things that an organization has to do to really be effective at implementing whitelisting, and some of the things that the security vendors aren't necessarily all that forthcoming with telling customers and organizations. So there are some challenges with implementing whitelisting. And there's some things that you want to do or need to do to really effectively implement it, get the value that you need out of it, and really have a sort of a process-based implementation. And one of the very first things that a whitelisting solution can do today is really discover what's in your environment and give you a good understanding of what's even installed and out in your environment. Most organizations can't say that with any real deterministic certainty that what applications are installed and what new applications are entering their environment. So discovery is a huge part of what whitelisting can do today. The other thing that organizations need to do is really look at their policies around change control. One of the things that whitelisting sort of forces an organization to deal with is the concept of how does change get introduced into their environment. And most companies don't know that. There's no stated policy for what are the agents that can introduce change. Historically, we've said basically anything can introduce change. We're just going to make sure we don't think viruses or malware are getting in. So in addition to discovery, what an organization needs to do is sort of wrap their heads around how they want change to be introduced into their environment and what kinds of change can be introduced. And then from an easy sort of target for implementation, you want to definitely focus on static environments, or what parts of your environment are more static. Point-of-sale systems, kiosks, purpose-built terminals. The sorts of things that don't need to have a lot of dynamic change are the environments and endpoints that you really want to start off with whitelisting, because they're the slowest moving targets. They're the easiest ones to wrap your head around. So those are some of the approaches and some of the things that organizations need to do as they start to roll out whitelisting in their environments as it stands today. And a lot of the advancements that are going to come in whitelisting in the future are this concepts of making it easier to use in dynamic environments, and making the management overhead much less burdensome. Some of the resistance to whitelisting, or the concept of introducing a whitelist model, is that it forces an organization to really look at how software applications or change is introduced to their endpoints. And that's not necessarily a pleasant thing for an organization to do. They're not used to, there is no policy that says, hey, here's how software is supposed to be introduced into my environment. And in order to effectively implement a whitelisting, or really move to a whitelisting approach for endpoint security and endpoint management, we really have to wrap our heads around how is software supposed to be introduced into our environments. Is it through certain people? Is it through certain other applications, like our systems management applications? Should software be allowed to be installed through a web browser? Or should software only be installed that's maybe built by a certain vendor? Is it signed? And so those are some pragmatic questions that every organization really has to sit down and ask themselves and create some policy around for their whitelisting solution to be effective at implementing and enforcing that policy. And that's one of the biggest challenges about this model and this adoption, is there is some work to be done by organizations themselves to look at themselves, look at their policies, and really start making some decisions about how change can occur.